She's just my work wife. He joked, but I wasn't laughing. I didn't think it was a big deal, until I walked into the office holiday party and found them sneaking away together. Curious, I followed them. When I opened the supply closet door, my worst fear was confirmed. They stumbled back, his shirt halfway off. He stammered, "Babe, this was a mistake." I crossed my arms and whispered, "Oh, it definitely was." Then I snapped a picture and said, "Smile for HR." His jaw dropped, and he knew his career and marriage were over. I used to think those work wife jokes were harmless. Office banter. Just something people said when they had a close friend at work. Daniel had been using that term for a while to talk about his coworker Michelle. "She keeps me sane at work," he'd say with a laugh. "I'd be lost without her." At first, I didn't think much of it. We had been together for 11 years, married for 7. We had a house, 2 dogs, and plans to start trying for a baby next year. I trusted him. Why wouldn't I? He had never given me a reason not to. But looking back, I ignored a lot of things that should have made me think twice. The first time I met Michelle was at a company picnic. Daniel had insisted I come so I could finally meet everyone. I was excited. I wanted to see his world, meet the people he spent so much time with. When I got there, she was the first person to come up to me. "Oh my God, he talks about you all the time," she said, her smile wide and friendly. I smiled back, but something felt off. She was too comfortable. She laughed too easily at his jokes, touched his arm too much. But I didn't want to be that wife, the jealous one. So I told myself I was imagining it. Then things started to change. Daniel started working late more often. At first, it was a few times a month, then a few times a week, and then suddenly, it felt like he was never home. "I have to," he'd say when I asked about it. "It's just that time of year. Everyone's swamped." I wanted to believe him. Then I noticed his phone. He never used to care where he left it. It would sit on the counter while he showered or charge on the nightstand overnight. Now, it was always on him. If I glanced at it, he'd grab it. If it buzzed, he'd pick it up and turn it over so the screen faced down. And then, one night, he came home late smelling like vanilla and jasmine. I don't wear perfume. When I asked him about it, he barely hesitated. "Michelle sprayed something in the office," he said, rolling his eyes. I probably walked through it. It sounded ridiculous. But I had no proof of anything, and I didn't want to start a fight over a smell. So I let it go. Then came the holiday party. Daniel told me it was employees only. No spouses, no dates. Some HR rule, apparently. He said he wasn't happy about it either, but there was nothing he could do. I believed him. Until Rachel, one of his coworkers, posted a story on Instagram. She was at the party, with her husband. I felt my stomach drop. I rewatched the story 3 times, making sure I wasn't misunderstanding. I wasn't. There they were, laughing together, drinks in hand, in a beautifully decorated ballroom at a hotel downtown. My hand shook as I grabbed my car keys. I didn't text Daniel. I didn't call. I just got in the car and drove. When I arrived, the party was in full swing. Music played, people danced, glasses clinked. Everyone was dressed up, smiling, having a good time. I scanned the room, searching for him. I didn't see him at first. Then I did. Daniel. Not at a table. Not at the bar. Not with a group of coworkers. He was sneaking out the side door, with Michelle. I couldn't move at first. My legs felt like cement. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might be sick. But then I did move. I followed them. They walked down a dimly lit hallway, far from the noise of the party. I kept my distance, my breath shallow. Then they turned a corner. I reached the end of the hall just in time to see them slip into a supply closet. I stared at the closed door. My head felt light, my hands cold. My entire body screamed at me to turn around, to walk away, to pretend I didn't see what I just saw. But I couldn't. I had to know. I pressed my ear to the door. Voices. Muffled. Laughing. Fabric rustling. I didn't think. I just acted. I grabbed the handle and yanked the door open. And there they were. Michelle, fixing her dress. Daniel, his shirt unbuttoned halfway, his face drained of color. He froze when he saw me. His mouth opened, but no words came out. I stepped inside, my heartbeat hammering in my ears. He stumbled back, shaking his head. "Babe," he said, his voice breaking. This isn't what it looks like." I stared at him. He looked pathetic. Weak. Michelle just stood there, arms crossed, not even bothering to look guilty. I took out my phone. Snapped a picture. His jaw dropped. "Smile for HR," I whispered. Daniel's face twisted in panic. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Michelle's smirk was gone now. She crossed her arms, her expression unreadable, but I saw the way her fingers twitched against her dress. She was nervous. Wait. Daniel took a step toward me, his hands out like he could somehow calm the storm he had just created. Let's talk about this. Please. I didn't move. Didn't speak. I just stared at him. I wanted to memorize this moment. The sheer horror in his eyes. The way he realized, too late, that he had just destroyed everything. Say something. He begged, his voice cracking. Please. I turned the phone screen toward him, showed him the picture. His shirt open, Michelle fixing her dress. It was undeniable. Daniel made a choking noise. You can't. He swallowed hard. You can't just assume the worst. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, I can't. He dragged a hand down his face. He was sweating now. It wasn't. I held up a finger. Careful, Daniel, I said softly. Whatever comes out of your mouth next? It better not be a lie. He flinched. Like I had slapped him. The hallway felt suffocatingly quiet. The party noise had faded into the background, like it was miles away. Michelle, to my surprise, was the first one to speak. Look, she said, her voice careful. I think we all just need to calm down. I turned to her, my anger shifting. Calm down? I repeated, my voice sharp. Do you say that to every wife who catches you with their husband in a storage closet? Her lips pressed into a thin line. It's not what you think. I laughed. Actually laughed. Oh? I tilted my head. Then please. Enlighten me. Daniel made a strangled noise. Stop it, Michelle. He muttered under his breath. I caught that. The way he pleaded with her. Like he knew she was about to say something that could make things worse. Something clicked in my brain. She wasn't just some random affair. She was something else. I took a slow step forward. You were never just co-workers, were you? I said. My voice was too calm. Too quiet. Michelle's eyes flicked to Daniel. And he looked terrified. That was all the answer I needed. How long? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated. Michelle sighed, like she was exhausted by all of this. 2 years, she said bluntly. Daniel whipped around to face her, his face twisted with panic. Shut up, he hissed. But it was too late. My stomach twisted. 2 years. They weren't just sleeping together. They had been carrying on an entire relationship behind my back. I had spent 2 years trusting a man who had been betraying me every single day. My hands clenched so tight I thought my nails might pierce my skin. Daniel turned back to me, his expression desperate. I wanted to stop. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay steady. You had 2 years to stop. The words landed like a punch. He winced. I turned to Michelle. And you? My voice was eerily calm. You knew he was married. You smiled in my face. Lied to me? She shrugged. Shrugged. Marriage is just a piece of paper, she said. I saw red. Before I could even process what I was doing, the glass of wine in my hand was airborne. It splashed all over her, deep red soaking into her dress. She gasped. What the hell? I let out a slow breath. I hadn't even realized I was shaking. Michelle wiped furiously at the stain. You're crazy. No, I said, staring right at her. I'm just done. Daniel was still frozen, his mouth open like he wanted to say something, but nothing would save him now. The tension was thick. The three of us standing in that tiny storage closet, the air electric with everything unsaid. Then I heard footsteps. Someone was coming. Daniel must have heard it too, because he panicked. His hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. Please, he begged. Don't make a scene. I yanked my arm away so fast he almost stumbled. I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because I had already won. I could see it in his face. His life was about to crumble. And I was about to make sure of it. The footsteps in the hallway were getting closer. Heavy. Purposeful. Daniel's eyes darted to the door, then back to me. Panic. Real panic. I watched him sweat, and I didn't move. I wanted to see him squirm. Michelle, still wiping at the wine on her dress, muttered, Great. Just great. The door to the storage closet was still wide open, and I didn't even bother to step aside as the person rounded the corner. Rachel. The same Rachel whose Instagram post had blown up his lie in the first place. Her eyes immediately widened as she took in the scene, Daniel, shirt half unbuttoned. Michelle, soaked in wine. Me, standing between them, phone still in hand. Rachel wasn't stupid. Holy SH. She cut herself off, covering her mouth with her hand. None of us spoke. Rachel's gaze flicked from Michelle to Daniel, then landed on me. Oh my God! Daniel snapped out of his trance. Rachel, listen, nope. She held up a hand. Nope. No. I don't want to hear it. I am so embarrassed for you right now. Michelle rolled her eyes. Can we not turn this into a whole thing? I actually laughed at that. A whole thing? You've been screwing my husband for 2 years. But sure, let's not make a big deal out of it. Rachel winced. Yikes. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. Can we talk about this somewhere else? His voice was low, urgent. I took a step back, tilting my head. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I making you uncomfortable? His jaw tightened. I just don't think this needs to be. Rachel cut him off. Okay, no, I have to ask. She turned to me. Did you already know? Before tonight? I exhaled sharply. I had suspicions. But tonight confirmed it. Rachel let out a slow whistle. Jesus. Then to Daniel. Dude. You are so screwed. Daniel looked like he might explode. I could see the wheels turning in his head. He was desperate to get control of the situation, to smooth things over before it got worse. But he had no idea. It was already worse. Because Rachel wasn't just some random coworker. She was the HR manager's wife. And I knew exactly how to use that. Daniel knew it too. I watched realization hit him like a truck. His face went white. Rachel's phone was already out. So, she said casually, snapping a picture of him and Michelle standing together. This is going to be fun. Michelle groaned. Oh my God, Rachel, don't oh my God me, Michelle. Rachel was grinning now. You really thought I wasn't gonna say anything? After everything you pulled last year? Wait. What? I turned to Rachel. What happened last year? Rachel snorted. Oh, you didn't know? Michelle has a history of screwing around with married men. I froze. Daniel went rigid. Michelle's face darkened. That's not your business, Rachel. Rachel smirked. Oh, but this? This is very much my business. I was still processing. Michelle. A repeat offender. And Daniel? He wasn't special. He was just the next dumb idiot to fall for it. Something in me snapped. I turned to Michelle, taking a slow step toward her. She tried to hold her ground, but I saw it, the flicker of fear. You, I said, voice steady, are pathetic. Her mouth opened, but I wasn't done. And you? I turned to Daniel. You threw away our life for this? I gestured at Michelle, who was still blotting at her dress, still rolling her eyes like none of this was serious. Daniel looked like he wanted to disappear. Rachel was having the time of her life. This is so much better than the party. Daniel took a deep breath, like he was about to beg again. But then, more footsteps. Multiple people. The hallway was filling up. More coworkers. More eyes. I watched as Daniel realized, too late, that he was completely, utterly trapped. And I smiled. Because this was just the beginning. More people gathered in the hallway, drawn in by the hushed whispers and the unmistakable scent of scandal in the air. Some coworkers hovered near the door, pretending not to eavesdrop, while others openly stared. The tension was suffocating, thick with unsaid words, unshed tears, and a truth that had been dragged into the light. Rachel folded her arms, watching the scene unfold like it was the most entertaining thing she'd seen all year. Well, she said loudly, breaking the silence. This is awkward. Daniel visibly flinched. He turned to me, his expression pleading. Desperate. Let's talk about this in private. He muttered, lowering his voice like it would somehow erase the fact that half his office was watching this unfold. I took a slow breath, my chest tight, my throat burning. Private? Now he wanted privacy? I turned my phone screen toward him again, making sure he got a good look at the evidence. The damning photo. The one that would follow him for the rest of his life. I saw the moment he truly realized it was over. Please! He tried again, his voice breaking. I let out a short, humorless laugh. He sounded so small. So unlike the man I thought I had married. You know, I said, my voice eerily steady. I spent years thinking you were the best thing that ever happened to me. I swallowed hard, feeling my pulse in my throat. Turns out, you were just the best liar. Daniel winced. I never wanted to hurt you. Yeah? I tilted my head. Well, you did. Every single day. For 2 years. The words landed like a slap. He physically recoiled. Michelle scoffed. Are we done here? This is getting embarrassing. I turned to her, really looked at her. She still had her arms crossed, still had that slight smirk tugging at her lips like none of this mattered. And maybe it didn't. Not to her. But it mattered to me. You think this is funny? I asked quietly. Her smirk wavered. I just think you're being dramatic. Rachel gasped. Wow. Read the room, Michelle. Michelle rolled her eyes. I mean, it's not like he's the first married guy too. I didn't let her finish. I stepped forward, closing the space between us until she had to actually lean back. I hope, I whispered, that someday, someone destroys you the way you destroyed me. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Rachel whistled. That gave me chills. Michelle finally looked uncomfortable. She stepped back, brushing past Daniel as she muttered, This isn't worth it. For a second, I thought she might just walk away, leave Daniel standing there alone. But then she did something unbelievable. She turned to him and said, Are you coming? Like I didn't exist. Like our entire life together meant nothing. A murmur rippled through the watching crowd. People exchanged wide-eyed looks, some whispering, some openly staring at Daniel. And then the worst part, he hesitated. He actually hesitated. Like some part of him was still considering it. The man I had loved, the man I had shared a home with, the man who had once promised to love me forever, he didn't even know if he wanted to stay or go. I felt something inside me break. Then, finally, he turned back to me. His eyes pleading. Please, he whispered. And suddenly, I was done. All the pain, the betrayal, the heartbreak, it all collapsed into something else. Clarity. I exhaled slowly. Then I took off my wedding ring. Held it between my fingers. Watched Daniel's eyes go wide. Then, without a word, I dropped it. The metal hit the floor with a sharp clink, rolling once before coming to a stop. Daniel gasped. Actually gasped. Like the reality of the situation had just now hit him. Like he was only now realizing what he had lost. But it was too late. I turned around, head high, back straight. And I walked away. I didn't look back. Didn't check to see if he picked up the ring. Didn't wait for one more pathetic attempt at an apology. I just kept walking. I stepped out of that hallway, out of that hotel, and out of his life. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt free.